What's up, Taiwan? I'm Liao with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Lawmakers from the opposition Kuomintang are calling for President Lai Ching-te to step down as the Democratic Progressive Party's leader and for the resignation of the premier after all 24 KMT lawmakers survived Saturday's recall vote.
美国的关税贸易战，或者是像这次南部受灾这么严重，行政院的表现通通都是不及格的。
Saturday's result is a major setback for the ruling party, which could have retaken control of the legislature if enough KMT lawmakers lost their seats. President Lai wrote on Facebook that the result is neither a victory nor a defeat for either side, and that he respects the outcome. Members of Lai's DPP say they are reviewing their next steps and remain unified.
失败的检讨不等于就是内斗啊！中共最喜欢看到的就是民进党的内斗，党啊或者行政院有必须做什么样的调整啊？这个民进党内部会自己检讨。
7 more KMT lawmakers still face recall elections next month. After votes were counted on Saturday, Alec McDonald spoke to political analyst Courtney Donovan-Smith for a deeper look at the impact of the results.
The recall vote against all 24 Kuomintang lawmakers failed today. So what does this mean for the Kuomintang leadership and the Democratic Progressive Party leadership moving forward?
Today, the voters spoke unambiguously. It's now clear that trying to use the recall laws as a political tactic, it has failed in a mass sort of way against a political party. It also, I think, unambiguously underscored that the voters within these districts wanted to underscore and reaffirm their choices that were made in the January 2024 election and send a loud and clear message that they didn't want their choices overturned. Now, this, I think, is going to give, this is a very big, I guess you could say, show of support for the KMT. I believe that they may interpret this in a way that everything that they have done or said has been underscored as correct. But I do think that if they do so, that might be overstepping their boundaries. So they may want to dial it back a little bit. Fundamentally, the DPP is going to have to do some soul searching. They, this was not initiated by them. It was not their campaign, but they did support it, and I'm certain that they were quite hopeful in the results, and this was definitely not what they were hoping for.
Voter turnout in most districts exceeded 50%, which is quite high for a non-presidential election. What's your takeaway?
Well, what's very interesting about this is that if you looked at polls, generally speaking, the majority were opposed to the recall votes. However, there were certain districts where you had just general voters, where the number that said they were voting to agree to the recall, for example, Xu Qiaoxin's district, the number that said that they supported recalling her was actually slightly higher than the percentage that said they didn't. And when you looked at likely voters, the percentage that said they were going to come out and vote to recall her was strikingly higher than the number who said they were going to vote and were going to support her. But it looks like the general numbers across the board were more accurate.
That was political analyst Courtney Donovan-Smith. Japan says part of a $550 billion deal with Washington could fund Taiwanese chipmakers building plants in the United States. Tokyo's chief trade negotiator says firms that use Japanese parts or sell to Japanese customers will qualify. No specific companies were named, but TSMC is currently building a $165 billion complex in the U.S. state of Arizona. The investment package was announced alongside a trade deal between Tokyo and Washington that cuts U.S. tariffs on Japanese goods from 25% to 15%. U.S. President Donald Trump says the leaders of Cambodia and Thailand have agreed to work out a ceasefire. after 3 days of deadly border clashes. In a series of social media posts, Trump gave play-by-play updates on his calls between the two leaders. He said U.S. trade talks with the two countries are on hold until the fighting stops. Both countries thanked Trump for his efforts, with Thailand's acting prime minister saying there needs to be stronger communication between the two sides. The conflict has killed at least 30 people and driven more than 130,000 from their homes. Israel says it has restarted airdropping aid into Gaza after facing global criticism and warnings of mass starvation in the Palestinian enclave. Israel also announced plans to set up humanitarian corridors for UN aid workers and introduce humanitarian pauses in densely populated areas, but gave no details. Aid groups and UN agencies are warning the airdrops are nowhere near enough to feed Gaza's 2.2 million people. They say Israel's restrictions are causing a man-made famine, an allegation Israel rejects. A new drama exploring the possibility of a Chinese invasion of Taiwan has just premiered in Taipei. The series, Zero Day Attack, tackles a scenario many here in Taiwan hope never comes true. To talk about the show and what it says about civilian resilience in urban warfare, Rick Lauert spoke to Liao, a professor at Academia Sinica and a member of Taiwan's Whole of Society Defense Resilience Committee.
Based on what you know and what you've heard, and you mentioned you've been in some of the talks with the directors and producers of this new series, how do you think what we're going to see in this dramatized way differs from what we read about or what we see politicians talking about?
So for a long time, I think Taiwan's military strategy really focused on stop the war by the sea, right? So we're imagining a scenario where, Chinese troops will come, but it will stop by our Air Force and our, naval ship, right? I mean, that's definitely the ideal situation. But this series, I think it takes on a more advanced or a more even radical vision where the PLA troops, right, are landing or surrounding or quarantining Taiwan. That is, I think, a newer scenario that we need to think about, what we call urban resilience, right? That war is not only, the military's effort or business, it's actually every civilians, right, that we're implicated in this type of invasion.
You're a member of this Whole Society Resilience Committee spearheaded by Taiwan's presidential office. You've been attending these committee meetings. I think the question a lot of us will be asking, how prepared do you think Taiwan is for war?
Yeah, this is a difficult question, right? Because when we talk about preparedness, there are many dimensions of it. So for the Whole Society Defense Resilience Committee, it really focused on 6 different areas, right? So including, our cybersecurity, including, our information space, our food stockpile, energy stockpile, medical resilience, but also civilian preparedness, right? So when we think about, war preparedness, it's not only about the military, right, the weapon system, right, the technical stuff. But I think the committee tries to do is that the society needs to build up a good, well-functioning communicative system, right? When war hits, we can still function as a regular society, right? That's what the resilience means. It means that when crises happen, you can bounce back to regular life. Yeah.
That was Academia Sinica professor Liao. Taiwan's badminton teams ended the World University Games in Germany on a high, grabbing 2 golds, 2 silvers, and 1 bronze on Saturday. Men's singles star Ding Yanchen beat France's Inogat Roy to secure Taiwan's 5th gold of the Games. Taiwan swept the mixed doubles category, winning gold, silver, and bronze medals, with Yang Zhuyun and Wu Xuanyi taking the top spot. While in women's doubles, Zheng Yujie and Song Youxuan settled for silver after a 3-set face-off with China's Li Qian and Wang Yiduo. Taiwan's east coast has been a major source of jade since prehistoric times. And while the boom days are long gone, one village there has visitors learning to appreciate this precious commodity in a hands-on way. John Van Trist reports.
For more than 50 years, Jiang Jinyuan has been cutting, carving, sanding, and polishing the special jade from the mountains near his home in eastern Taiwan. He's part of a tradition that goes back to the area's prehistory, And despite the collapse of his hometown's trade in the precious gemstone, his workshop has managed to hold on. Now, an exhibit showing off the story of Zhang and his neighbors in a place that's still proud to be Taiwan's jade capital. It's the black dots against a deep green that are the telltale sign of Fengtian jade, named for Fengtian village in Hualien County. Zinc, chromium, and iron mixed into the rock give it its special spotted look. And while only rediscovered and named after a 1956 survey, it's been prized for a very long time. Fengtian jade artifacts have shown up at more than 100 prehistoric sites across Taiwan, and it's even been dug up abroad, hinting at the flow of ancient trade.
丰田玉没有到日本，那丰田玉也没有到福建、广东，就是到越南、菲律宾或是婆罗洲。
But it was in the 1960s, shortly after the geologists found it, that the area saw a true jade boom. Those who remember it say everyone wanted a piece of Fengtian jade, even in places where it had once been unknown.
外销日本啊，不管大理石也好，风电叶也好，伊甲这石头相关的哦，迄当然是发展咱这个产业蓬勃发展。
And by coincidence, a ready labor force was already on the ground, ready to feed the jade market. The government had just given farmland in the area to retired military men who'd fled to Taiwan from China after the civil war there. But the area wasn't fertile, and farming was a bust. The whine of polishing machines grinding on stone soon filled local streets as jade finishing workshops multiplied. Industry veteran Jiang Jinyuan remembers.
80间左右，拢从事台湾玉加工的行业，大部分都是小家庭的加工业了。哦，大家做的外销。
By 1975, up to 90% of the world's jade was coming from these few workshops in rural eastern Taiwan. Though some miners would steal jade and sell it on the black market, the industry kept going from strength to strength, until, very suddenly, the whole thing vanished. Taiwan's economy stumbled amid global oil shocks, and jade from other places, Siberia and Canada, proved to be what the market wanted, leaving Fengtian's jade products unsold. But there are survivors, those who've learned to adapt, like Jiang Jinyuan.
没落了就一间一间的结束。哦，我们是经过几十年一个产业，我们是一直撑到最后，哦，来转型做 DIY。 若无转型，阮的产业就爱流失掉啊。
Today, like the rest of Hualien County, Fengtian is a tourism powerhouse, a place where city dwellers come to recharge amid the clean mountain air and green landscape. Here, hunting for the perfect piece of jade in the area's fast-flowing streams makes for a pleasant afternoon. And plenty of visitors discover the joys of making their own jade ornaments too, as once professional workshops open their doors to those looking for a unique DIY experience. The days of mass export may be past, but Fengtian is still in love with its jade. And the many who pass through each year come away loving it too. From prehistoric trade good to modern tourist attraction, Fengtian jade has played many roles over time. But it's always tightly linked to this special corner of Taiwan and the people who call it home. Alex Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
And thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, check out Comic-Con 2025 in San Diego, the world's biggest pop culture convention. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.